learned I didn't come from a very wealthy family. My dad struggled as a beautician. My mom never worked, and we had 4 kids living in a 1-bathroom house. My first memory of money was when I was in grammar school, and I'll never forget, lunch was 50 cents, and my father would give my older brother the $1, and I would have to meet him in the hallway and get the 50 cents change so I can buy lunch. So that's when I realized how hard it is to earn and how you have to respect the value of the dollar. I want my clients to know that the value of money is important to them and it's important to me. When I'm working with their dollars, I tell them, I understand this is your hard-earned money that you worked your whole life to earn. And we're going to do the best we can to protect their assets. And that we appreciate the trust they're giving us. And we don't take that for granted. I think what sets us apart is I communicate with my clients regularly, and I think that is the key to a client-advisor relationship. And we have that open door kind of policy in our practice that they know if there's a question, they call my office, they can come in for a cup of coffee, and we'll get that question answered, and they have access to me at pretty much any time they want. I don't think there's one set answer what retirement should look like. I think it's different for every individual that comes into your door. It really depends on the person, what their vision of retirement is. I get great satisfaction of helping retirees live out their retirement life and designing and implementing strategies for them and helping them reach their goals. When I started this business with my dad in 1986, I never thought it would get to the point where we are today where we're impacting people's lives in a positive note. I'm actually seeing where my kids have taken an interest in taking over this business with me as well. It's something that I created with my dad 30 years ago and something that hopefully will be around for another 30, 40 years. When my kids are running it, I inform and empower people to make better decisions with their hard-earned money so they can enjoy their retirement life, enjoy their retirement goals. I just help them through the process and implement a retirement income plan that allows them to do what they want. That's what I do.
So you're sitting forward?
Yeah, so welcome to season 3.
Yeah, this is season 3.
This is season 3.
What's the name of the podcast?
Season 3, episode 1?
Episode
season
1,
3, episode 1.
The ideal experience.
The ideal experience?
Yep.
Yeah, for everybody, and especially for John, for your social media platforms. This is Ideal Experience. My name's Pauline Bujanowski. I'm here with my co-host, Chris, who happens to be my son.
Your best-looking son, too, by the way.
Okay. And we're a weight loss company located in Livingston, for your viewers who don't know us.
Great.
And we have a great guest today, and it's perfect for this time, right, with the market.
Mm-hmm.
We have John Papa joining us. Thank you, John.
Hey, Paulina, how are you?
Doing well. And John's
Doing good.
the owner of Diversified Planning Strategies, located in Caldwell.
That's correct. Yep.
I've known you for a while, John. So
I've known your family, Paulina, since I'm going to say the early 90s.
Did you meet Al on the beach? Is that how you
guys
met?
No, actually met Al through friends of ours, Dave Pepe, in
Dave
the early
Pepe.
90s. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I thought he said on the beach.
Oh, we could have met on the beach.
Probably.
It might have been. That's a long time ago.
That's a long, yeah.
His son just got married, too, right? A couple years ago?
Who's that?
Dave's son just
Dave.
got married, yeah.
About a year or two ago. We were at the wedding, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really good time.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us, John.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
I think the time is fitting because you're a financial planner and everybody's freaked out about what's going on in the market.
There's nothing going on, right?
Yeah,
nothing's going on in the world right now.
Everything's
Nothing.
good.
Everything's great.
Rates are good. Yeah, everything's good.
Everything's good.
So, I thought it was important to come on and ask you questions and inform the viewers and explain really what is going on in the market. Because I always say you're never going to lose unless you sell, and I could be completely wrong. Right?
That is a saying that we hear all the time. And it is kind of true, though, too, because you don't experience the loss or take the loss unless you sell the security that's down. So if you're just holding on to the shares and the value of it's down, okay, yeah, on paper you're down, but that security also, most of them pay dividends and buys more shares at a lower price. So when the market does turn around, and it has turned around every time, you'll have more shares to partake in the upside. So.
Right. Okay. Well, before we start let's tell everybody what you do, John. Well, what you specialize in.
Okay, that's a great question. I formed a company, Diversified Planning Strategies Advisors. I manage assets for clients, all individual clients, not any institutional clients or companies. I deal with individual people, mostly, hardworking, middle-class America. And we design and implement investment strategies for people to so that they can improve their financial life. So if we're trying to design a plan to get them to retirement, or we're trying to just build an investment nest egg, whatever, it depends on what the client's needs and wants are. So we design these strategies. I'm an independent. I'm a fiduciary, which is a huge word that's going around now, which means my license dictates that I have the client's needs and wants over my own. So everything has to be disclosed to a client. Conflicts of interest, pros and cons of an investment strategy, how I get compensated in this arrangement. So that's why you want to deal with a fiduciary. It's the highest standard of care.
That's not common practice then.
No, not every advisor is a fiduciary. In fact, I was asked on my TV show last week, what is a person supposed to do when they're interviewing an advisor? And the first question I would ask somebody is,
how do you make your
potential advisor? No, are you a fiduciary or not? Because if you're not a fiduciary, then I'm moving on to the next person already. That's the first qualification. If you're not a fiduciary, I'm not dealing with you. If you are a fiduciary, then we'll get into how do you
what
make
does it
money.
entail to become one?
Well, it's licensing and training and courses you have to take that are regulated by the SEC and FINRA, who are the regulatory bodies in the financial world.
That's scary.
Well, I mean, no, it's scary if you're not one. I don't know
That's
how
what I'm
people.
saying.
I don't
That's
know how
scary
people
for
work,
the
but they're
average
not.
person,
Right.
because they probably don't even know that.
Paulina, that should be question number one. What are you a fiduciary? That should be the first question out of anybody's mouth when they're interviewing an advisor.
So that would be Fidelity.
This podcast right now. That's the most important
Fidelity,
information.
their fiduciary, or no, Fisher Investments. You see all the time, like
Fisher
CNBC.
Investments, right?
Yeah.
They talk about that. They say we're a fiduciary, right? So yeah, you want to ask that question. That's out there now. It's all over in the financial world. You should be a fiduciary, working with a fiduciary.
So what's the second best question to ask?
Second best question to ask is, are you affiliated with a firm? Who you with? Are you independent, or are you with a big box firm like Merrill Lynch, Fidelity you brought up? Find out where that person's affiliated with. Because if they're just in a Merrill Lynch or a Fidelity house, then they're going to be touting and using Fidelity or Merrill Lynch products. Right? Whereas an independent guy like myself, I like to use the analogy of Home Depot. When you come in and let's say you want to hang a picture in your house and you need a hammer, right? You go to a Fidelity or a Merrill Lynch or whoever, they're going to sell you Fidelity or Merrill Lynch hammers. Well, as an independent guy, I'm Home Depot. I have access to every hammer that's available. So, hey, let's go to aisle 2 and I'm going to show you the hammers that we have available. Now, going back to the fiduciary question, a Merrill Lynch or a Fidelity guy will just sell you a 20-pound hammer, and that's a suitable recommendation for you. You wanted a hammer, they sold you a hammer, and you go off on your own. As a fiduciary, if I sold you a 20-pound hammer, I'm probably getting fined and not lose my license, because I have to ask you a couple more questions. How's your health? Any surgical procedures you've had recently? Can you swing a 20-pound hammer? Or let's go find a hammer that fits your specific ability. So a fiduciary has to take that care to the next level.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for watching The Ideal Experience. If you or anyone you know needs to lose weight, I have helped my clients lose over 60,000 pounds in the last 12 years. Give us a call. The office number is 973-486-6928. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
So there's no one size fits all then?
There's never a one size fits all. If you're dealing with somebody that's every plan's exactly the same for every person, that's red flag number 2, besides they're not being a fiduciary.
So your typical investor, let's say, or are they called investors?
Yeah, investors. We call them clients.
So your typical client, are they accredited, a lot of them? Are they not accredited?
Well,
usually
that depends on the size of assets that they have, being an accredited investor or not. Most of my clients are regular, hardworking, blue-collar people that are not accredited investors, don't have $1 million liquid assets in the market. They have a couple $100,000 they saved in an IRA for all these years while they were working.
And their plan is just to pass it down to the kids later on, or to the family at some point?
Well,
and
we
just
see all
stabilize?
that.
Yeah.
We see all that. It depends. It depends. Some of them you need it for income, in retirement. Some of them want to pass it on down to their kids. They don't need the money. So it really depends. Again, back to nothing's cookie cutter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all individual, specific to the client.
Here's where my ADD kicks in, because now I'm all over the place. So when you talk about a Merrill Lynch, is it?
Listen, I don't mean to
No,
talk
no,
about
no, I'm not-
individual
no,
specific
not, but
companies,
I'm
because
just-
you really shouldn't be
No,
talking about
absolutely
individual
not.
specific
But I'm
companies,
trying
but-
to understand. But if you're working for a bigger firm, is it kind of like real estate where the realtor takes the commission and then some goes to the house per se?
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, there's Merrill Lynch has to make money somehow,
So,
right?
So are there just higher fees then, I should
there
say,
could be higher
associated
fees.
with
There could be
working
fees
with
to buy
larger
and
places?
sell securities. It depends on what their structure is. And again, a fiduciary has to disclose all that.
Okay.
It has to say, hey, here's how I get paid. If we're going to manage assets for you, here's how I get paid. Am I going to get paid by buying and selling stocks inside your portfolio? So I might be churning your account and you'll see 30 trades a month, because the more trades I make, the more money I make. Or am I going to have a set fee on the amount of assets that I'm managing, and my compensation is tied to your account doing well? The better your account does, the better I do, because the more money we manage, my fee stays the same, but it's on a larger pot of money.
Yeah.
So I have an incentive to build your account as much as I can.
Right.
Within the risk tolerance of the client, but my job is to work for you and to build your portfolio as best I can within that risk level. And my compensation is tied to that, because I get paid based on the amount of assets I'm managing for you.
And I've seen a lot of guys, too, get a little aggressive with their trading strategies, and they get popped for that, right? Well, popped for us.
Yeah.
What's that called again?
It's called churning. You're churning an account.
Because I saw one case. It was aggressive. I forget the term that they used, but he made like something a crazy amount of trades in such a short period of time,
Right.
because he wanted to collect those fees.
Well, that's one of the questions you're going to ask an advisor in that interview with the advisor. Besides, are you a fiduciary or not? Are you independent or with a specific firm? How do you get paid? Are you paid via transaction, trades, or are you a percentage of assets under management? Those are all the questions you want to ask and know up front before you hire an advisor.
Yeah, that's crazy, because by the time you pay fees sometimes and then taxes on top of it, it
Yeah,
could be a
depending
big
on
chunk
whether the
of
account's
money.
set up, taxes could be a big thing.
But I was reading an article and they said people that really do the investment over a 25-year period may get 5% return. If you work with somebody, it's an over 8% usually. So that's a big difference in
Where'd
money.
you hear that?
I was reading something and it said, people that try to do it on their own.
Right.
And open up
Do-it-yourselfers, we
accounts,
call them. Right.
they don't get the return.
I mean, Paulina, every situation could be different. I mean, if you are do-it-yourselfer and you buy an S&P 500 index fund and let it just sit there for 30 years, you'll probably do more than 5%.
Yeah.
But you're not going to capture the big 40%, 50% gains in a year, as if you bought some Amazon stock or Apple stock, though they have the potential to grow hundreds of percents.
Tesla
Right.
calls.
Tesla calls, right? So yes and no to that question. A person could do it yourself and earn 5% or 8% because they just pick a bland S&P 500 fund, and over time they perform very well.
John, do you like REITs?
I don't, and the reason why I don't is because of the liquidity of the REIT. Clients like independence. They like to know that, hey, if I want to get out of this thing for whatever reason, I want to be able to sell it and get out.
I'm on the same page too. I
I don't
dislike
like
REITs.
it. The reason why they pay high dividends and you get high yield from them is because they control your money.
Yeah, and you don't know what you're buying
I'd rather
either.
get a little less and have access to my funds.
Do most financial advisors deal in life insurance?
That's a pretty good question. I'm not sure. The big wirehouse places, I would say no to that. They're just dealing in the Wall Street world. See, we use
You use everything.
Yeah,
that's the amazing
if
thing.
what you remember in our meetings with your mom, the few that you came into, we split. A fiduciary calls a diversified portfolio not a mixture of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. That's the Wall Street world. Every investment in the Wall Street world, regardless of what it is, has an element of risk. Okay, to me, that's not a diversified portfolio, and you can see it today in 2022. Not only are stocks down, mutual funds are down, equities are down, but bonds are down too because interest rates are rising. So what used to be a safe haven where the broker would tell you we have a mixture of bonds in your portfolio to reduce risk in your portfolio. Well, I've seen bonds that are down 15% this year. And that's supposed to be the safe haven of the Wall Street
and
world.
it's not.
That's not a diversified portfolio. A diversified portfolio is one that mixes the 3 different investment worlds. You can put your money in basically 3 different spots: the banks, insurance companies, and Wall Street. And my job as a fiduciary is to explain to you the pros and cons and purpose of each one of those worlds. And I believe you should have some money in all of them because they have specific purposes. Like money in a bank, for instance. I talk about this all the time. Clients, you should have enough money in a bank, 6 months of expenses or even a year if you feel more comfortable that way. But because it's liquid and it's safe.
Right.
It's never going to go down. It's never not going to be there, right? And it's liquid. In 30 seconds, you can go to the teller and withdraw however much money you want, and you get it, right? But the negative to a bank is it's no return. You get no interest on the money there.
It's sitting there, right?
Inflation kills you.
But it is killing you. But when you know that's really just your emergency fund, I don't care if it pays any interest. And I'll tell my clients,
I agree
don't be
with you.
driving up and down Bloomfield Avenue looking for what bank's giving you a better interest rate because you're just wasting gas.
Yeah.
And right now, gas is crazy. But I don't care. The purpose of the money in the bank is an emergency fund.
Yep.
Right. I agree
So you
with
can go to a teller and we're not building your wealth in a bank. It's for emergency. So just leave it there. Earn nothing. I don't care. We're going to build your wealth in the insurance world and in the Wall Street world. So the insurance world, there's fixed annuity contracts that your mom has some of them that provide protection, but also growth. She's earned probably around 5-6% per year over time in that investment with no risk to her money.
Yeah, I like
That's
insurance.
Safety. That's safety. We use insurance,
I like insurance.
all the time.
I love it.
And we also have investments for inflationary protection and long-term growth. So if I take a client, for example, who has $1 million, right? We want to leave $100,000 in a bank for liquidity. I don't care what the interest rate you're earning. We put a couple $100,000 in the insurance-based product that can't go down. And then we put the rest of it in Wall Street. So now, let's say we put $400,000 in the insurance world, $100,000 in the bank. So half of that person's money cannot go down because of the markets.
What about multifamily?
Wait.
I'm sorry.
No.
So the third bucket is the Wall Street bucket that's got $500,000 in it. And that's going to be invested in a risk tolerance strategy based on what the client's risk is, not what my risk is. So we have tools that can measure risk. So the higher the risk, the higher the returns, the larger the roller coaster you're going to be on. So we'll tailor that third world to the client's specific risk tolerance.
How about to their age too?
Age is a big part of it. Age is a big part of when you're measuring risk for a client. Because if you're 30 years old, you should be on the roller coaster. If you're 70 years old, that roller coaster's got to be like it's a small world at Disney World.
Right. And if you're 50,
a really small 50, you could still be taking some nice risk to get growth because life expectancy is getting longer and longer and longer. A 50-year-old expects to live till he's mid-80s. That's 35 years. So you have time to recover. So you should still be in a sort of an aggressive portfolio. So back to the diversification though. So in that scenario, half of the client's money is invested in Wall Street in a risk-tolerant investment strategy. The other half of their money can't go down. So times like now when the market's going crazy and they're down 30% for the year, well, in that strategy, that client's probably down 5% for the year. They're not freaking out. They're not making panic decisions. They're not getting emotional. They're not making crazy decisions. And you're just staying the course because you have your money in a truly diversified portfolio. Wall Street guys, the big wirehouses you were talking about, they only want your money in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds.
That's it.
That's all at risk. It's just a different type of risk. So that's not a diversified.
That's the one thing that
they're
stood out
selling
about
that
you.
as a diversified portfolio.
Yeah, but that stood out about you is that you do because I like life insurance.
Right, life insurance,
Like
fixed index annuities, protection. You got to talk about protection when you're with clients. Now, 22-year-olds, you don't need to be in the insurance world right now. You need to be aggressive in your portfolio and invest because even though you're buying Amazon, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, even though they're down right now, you're buying them at 30% discounts. those companies are going to be, they're the leading companies in the world, right?
Right. They're
So
gonna go back
20
up.
years from now, you're going to be making tons of money with those companies. So buy as much as you can, be aggressive for the younger people.
Right.
Older people, you can't be like that.
So life insurance, what's the difference between universal and whole?
That's a great question. Universal is basically a combination of mutual funds and term life insurance. Whole life insurance is more like a vanilla. You have guarantees written into the contract. It can never go away, can never explode. It's more money than universal, but it's filled with guarantees. So if a person can afford the premiums in whole life, my opinion is that's the better insurance to buy. Now, you're not going to get the mutual fund gains like you could get in a universal life policy, but you're also not going to get losses in it. And in a universal life contract, I go to, when I compare the two, I go to the page that shows me what's the guarantee in this thing. Can this policy ever blow up on a client? Which means 30 years from now, if the markets don't do well, that policy could go away, not by the client's choice, because the investment choices you chose. Whole life insurance, you sign a contract the day you buy it, that contract will be there till the day you die. I don't care if it's 150 years old.
Can you borrow against both of them?
Yes, you can. If you borrow against a universal life policy, you're even making it more risky because now you're taking money out of that contract. Now it's got less guarantees. If the market turns south like it is now and you've borrowed out of your universal life cash value, you're exposing that contract to blowing up and losing the death benefit, and that's really bad.
So whole life, people still will borrow against, but it just means the death payout is less. Is that correct?
Right.
Or come down.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can also pay it back. See, I have clients, tons of clients that have whole life insurance, and they borrow against it. They'll pay an interest rate. So I'll give you an example.
Is it normally low?
Yeah,
Lower
the interest rates are probably 5 to 7%, right? But here's the big difference. In a whole life policy, let's say you had $100,000 and you needed 40 grand to go buy a car. And the car, even though car rates are low now, but they're starting to rise. But let's say you don't have great credit, so you can't get a car loan, right? You could take the money out of your life insurance policy. There is no application. You get the money when you ask for it. So there's no timetable to pay the money back. So you can tailor the loan to payments that fit yourself. But here's the best thing about borrowing against a whole life policy. Go back to the example, you have $100,000, you take 40 out to buy a car, right? Your policy, like there's not some safety deposit box in the insurance company that says, I'm taking 40,000 out of Paulina's account and giving it to her so she only has $60,000 left. No, they take it out of their reserves, give you the 40 grand, they charge a loan interest rate on it, but your $100,000 is still earning interest to the tune of 5 to 7%. So it's like a net zero interest loan. I have clients that do that all the time.
Yeah.
Borrow on it. You want to go buy a car? Borrow it from your life insurance policy, get a payment schedule, pay it back. So you're all paid in full when you're done. And if you miss a payment, no one's coming knocking on your door with a tow truck to take the car away. It's the best place to go for short-term loans, okay, is your own whole life policy. I use it a lot in our practice.
And then, no, I love
use it a lot.
And that's also, it's tax-free, right? For whoever you're leaving your life insurance policy.
The death benefits.
The death benefits,
are
right?
tax-free regardless of what type of insurance it is. Term, whole life, universal life. When you collect a death benefit, it's income tax-free.
Right.
There's
so
no
that's
taxes.
A great way to leave
Absolutely.
your money to your children.
Absolutely.
Without them being hit with taxes.
And multifamily real estate, but we'll get to that
He
in a little
loves
bit.
multifamily real estate. He's going to.
I think it's the best investment vehicle ever made.
Real estate property, you mean like multifamily homes
30,
and things
40,
like that?
50, 60
apartment
units.
buildings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because hyperinflation periods, the price of the asset goes through the roof.
Yeah, but just you need a lot of money to buy them, though. You know? I mean, you got to, I don't know, what's a typical example of what would a 40-unit building cost?
So $250 a door, $250 to $280 a door.
All right, so do the math.
You need a down payment. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to put a lot of money down for that.
Definitely.
So if you have a ton of money, that's how the wealthy people
do it.
Really wealthy people do it. They're not, buying,
Yeah.
REITs and things like that.
No,
They're buying
definitely not.
buildings.
Exactly.
I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. But for the smaller client that I have, the individual client, not a lot of people have enough money to go buy a 30-unit,
Yeah.
40-unit building.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, the family offices too, if you could find one
Yeah.
to partner up with.
Absolutely.
Unless you buy whole life and take
Well,
the
you'd have
loan
to
out.
really put- you'd have
right,
to
Luke?
really
I'm
put-
thinking Luke's in the background.
You'd have to really put a lot of money into
That.
it.
Well,
to-
when you have a whole life policy, how long before you're vested where you can be taking loan?
Well, that's a great question, Paulina. And in reality, the earlier years, really the insurance company's making all the money, because I think actually after the first 1 or 2 years, you have no cash value, but you've paid a lot of premiums.
Right.
But from like the third year on,
You're
you're
good.
making money on your premium deposits going in. I just sat with a client, actually talked to a client on the phone, going to go meet him in August to go over their policy. This guy took a Guardian whole life policy with me in 1992. So it's 30 years old, I think, almost 30 years old. And he puts in a couple $100 a month. His cash value increases. So I asked him on the phone, he was wanting to cancel it. I'm like, I won't say his name. I'll just say his name is Joe. I go, Joe, let me ask you a question. Where could you give somebody, you put in $4,000 a year for this whole life policy, right? Next year's cash value increase is going to be $9,000. So in 1 year, you gave the insurance company $4,000.
At 9.
They're increasing your cash value by 9.
Right.
Guaranteed. No market, you know what's going on in the market. You're still getting that gain. You call me up as an investor and say, John, I'm going to give you $4,000. Can you make sure it's 9,000 when I get done 12 months from now? Absolutely not. So your policy now, after 30 years, you're printing money
Right.
with that contract. Keep paying the 4,000 and keep making 9, and that increases every year. Keep making. The next year it's going to be 10,000 on your 4,000, 11,000 on your 4,000. Just keep doing it.
I know that there's some, to me, they're elaborate kind of setups where they make their home the LLC. The kids are involved. They do whole life. People borrow for college. It's a generational kind of
absolutely.
is generational wealth.
You know, I talk about generational wealth. You know, guess where Walt Disney got most of his money to start his first Disneyland?
Life insurance?
His life insurance policy.
Yeah.
He got rejected for loans, so he had a pretty big, substantial whole life policy. He borrowed from his life insurance policy to start Disneyland in California.
Yeah.
What's
see?
the return on that investment?
I just always think that it's just not,
Billions, the
people don't
return.
realize
How are we on that one?
The benefits of it.
Nice.
the benefits of
People
insurance.
don't like life insurance because they don't want to talk about death.
Death, that's
but
the whole
these
thing.
cash value building policies are more about financial planning than they are about death.
Yeah.
Just as important.
And I do think it's one of the ways to leave your kids money.
People
Is
get-
through-
It
is
is
through
a
the
great way to
insurance.
leave your
It's a
kids
great.
money.
People get too emotional. We're all going to die at some point, so
They
we
don't
might as well
wanna
bring it
talk
up
Yeah,
now.
they don't wanna
They don't
talk
wanna
about it.
Yeah. So I want to transition a little bit to the current state of the market. What's going on right now?
Well, the market's volatile. I mean,
Yeah.
the market's volatile. People are panicking. They're nervous. They're selling. They're making crazy decisions. You got everything's going down right now, which is very rarely happens. Like typically, like we talked about before, typically you use bonds and fixed income strategies as a safe haven towards equities.
Yeah.
So people do a 60-40 mix. You've heard of that 60-40 portfolio? That portfolio in 2022 was down almost 30%.
That's crazy.
So what you thought was safe, 40% of your money was safe in bonds, has gotten crushed because interest rates are high, right? Here's what happened. We had a market crash. We had a recession in 2008, right? We needed to go into recession. The real estate industry collapsed. The banks collapsed. And investment companies, Lehman Brothers collapsed. We needed to go into a recession. Unemployment was through the roof. Nobody was working. Wages were down.
The loans being taken
Loans
out.
were given to people with no background checks and everything all at once. There were red flags everywhere. And the country went into a huge recession, right? In 2008. Now, how did we get out of it? Well, the government started printing money and really pumping money into the markets. So we've been in a really false bull run since 2008. So 14 years of really fake bull run because the government just kept on pumping money into the system to keep the markets afloat. But it was only supposed to be temporary until we recovered and went back to people working and saving money like normal markets.
Right.
But we've been in a fake market for basically 14 years. So that stimulated the economy, stimulated the markets went up, so everyone thought they can invest, and now we're $30 trillion in debt from all this fake money that was pumped into the markets.
Being printed, yeah.
Money being printed by the Federal Reserve for 14 years, and it just has come to a head now. It's like, this can't happen anymore. We can't sustain it. And now interest rates have to rise because inflation is at the highest it's been in 40 years. We haven't seen 8.6% inflation since Jimmy Carter was the president.
Yeah.
And it's all come to a head now. And now everything's getting affected by it.
I saw a stat, I don't know if it's true or not, because you hear a bunch of stats, that 40% of all money in circulation right now was printed in the last 18 months.
I didn't hear that exact stat, but I heard something similar to that. And I
which is
that.
crazy.
I believe that.
So when people say, well, this was an inevitable, this was going to happen no matter what, that's really not true.
No, that is true. We were on this path. We just didn't know when it was going to happen.
But the additional printing of the money.
Right. It was supposed to stop. It was supposed to stop the bleeding in 2008, and maybe, a year or two after that, we get settled, everybody calm down, and go back to normal, where companies are reporting earnings, they're selling goods and services, people are buying them, and it was supposed to go back to normal. That's how normal markets work. But we didn't go back to normal. We kept on printing money. The Fed was buying notes every month. Hundreds of billions of dollars they were buying securities every month, printing money and funneling it back into the markets, which propped the markets up. But eventually the cards are going to fall.
And we're not backed by anything anymore. It used to be gold.
Cards,
and
right? No.
But you heard of the modern monetary theory. Am I saying that right? If you're the world leading economy, you're allowed to print.
Right.
But when you're not, you got to stop the printing.
You have to. And we never stopped.
I always say to Christopher,
and we're still going.
Financial advice.
Right, we're still just printing nonstop.
Yeah. They're trying to taper it down. They're trying to stop, but they're not. They haven't.
That's why, like, when I see money in my bank account, it frightens me because there's more of it. It's not becoming scarce. It's becoming abundant now. Right. And I don't like seeing money just sitting there. It drives me insane.
Well, unfortunately, the young people are the ones that are going to pay. The kids and grandkids.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones that 20, 30 years from now, God knows what the tax rates are going to be then. Because there's going to be just a tsunami of red ink and
big time.
It's scary.
Sri Lanka.
But I always say that, the financial advisors, it's good to have one who's experienced and who has seen the ebbs and flows of the market.
Right.
Right?
Like that's a great point. If you start working with a financial advisor, started in this business 2010, right? Let's just use that as an example. That person's got 12 years of experience. She's out there touting, I got 12 years experience. I've been around the block. You got 12 years of experience of a fake market.
Right.
Yeah.
You
A
don't have
monkey in the last 12, 14 years could throw a dart at a news stock paper and pick stocks that were going to go up. You need to deal with somebody who's been around and saw 2008, dealt with 2000, dealt with the .com.
With all those phone calls coming in.
Phone calls. What do we do? How do we protect ourselves? That's how we develop this truly diversified portfolio strategy. It's not all in Wall Street. It's in the other.
It can't be.
Other places where you can get safety in your money.
The day Lehman collapsed, how many phone calls did you get that day?
Oh my God.
Take us through that day. Hundreds. What happened?
Well, no one thought that was going to happen. Right?
No, of course not.
And I'll give you so that day happens. The markets are collapsing. People don't realize, how many. Everyone goes to banks for safety and because we have FDIC insurance and all that. But how many banks have gone under in the last 20 years, have become insolvent?
And then bought.
Thousands of banks have become insolvent because they loan money out to bad creditor, bad people who can't afford to repay their loans.
They're over-leveraged.
They don't have enough assets to. A bank basically loans out 90-some-odd% of the money they take in deposits.
Yep.
So if we all went to our bank today, every person went to the bank today to take our money out, that bank's going under.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the money.
Yeah.
Okay? So back in the same time, two things happened. AIG was having problems in 2008, and Lehman Brothers was having problems in 2008. The government let Lehman Brothers collapse because when you put your money in Lehman Brothers, you were investing it in risk. When you put money with an insurance company, they have guarantees in those products that you bought.
Yeah.
The federal government bailed out AIG. No one really knows that or talks about it because it was an insurance company. So they couldn't let that company go under. In the history of the United States, not one person has ever lost a penny from an insurance company going under
Yeah,
because of the
that'd be Armageddon.
guarantees
Yeah.
and the protections that these companies have. Well, the markets, you put your money with Lehman Brothers or any of these other ones that we mentioned before, you're risking your money. You could wake up tomorrow and there's no money there. You're taking risk with your portfolio. So the government can't bail those people out. You knew the risk going in. So back to that day, it was crazy. The Lehman Brothers goes down. Now everybody starts panicking. The market just tanked because everyone starts selling, going to cash. And, it was a crazy day. It was crazy.
Probably over 100 phone calls just in the morning.
A day,
Yeah.
minimal. I don't remember the exact number, but it was just ringing off the hook.
Yeah.
You know,
That's scary.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why, you got to communicate with your clients. To be a successful advisor, it's more about the client advisor communication,
And that's why you do your dinners at the end of every
We do
year.
dinners.
Yeah.
We send out quarterly reports every 3 months on the investment. With the investments, every 3 months, my clients get a report. It's basically a report card. How did we do for the quarter? Now, this quarter wasn't great. So I've gotten calls about it. Listen, it's not only good, there's going to be bad, and we got to report it.
It raises
But
a
that
red flag to
generates
always
the
be good.
conversation.
Yeah.
That generates the conversation. And that's why we want to have, at least every 3 months, on the money in Wall Street, let's talk about what's going on. Okay. With insurance companies, you do more of a yearly review kind of thing because nothing really changes during the year. So you're doing yearly reviews on that. But on the investment side, we're communicating on a regular basis. And that, to me, is the key to a successful relationship between a client and an advisor.
100%.
That's why we don't lose clients.
It just when you listen to everybody and when you middle America, it's hard that they're invested so much into Wall Street.
Right.
Because
You got a mortgage.
It's
you give
risky.
your- yeah.
It's very,
Wall
very
Street
risky.
Invests trillions of dollars in marketing for you to believe that your money has to be in whatever Wall Street product they're touting. You guys mentioned the guy before. I'm not going to say his name. He hates annuities. That guy. Really? I would like to debate that guy and sit down with him and say, okay, so take a portfolio you have all in Wall Street, and that client's down 30% today in that 60-40 mix, whereas my client, who has half their money in Wall Street, half of it in guaranteed positions outside of Wall Street,
Right.
who's only down 8% in this year, you're going to tell me an annuity or whatever product we're using is bad for the client?
No, because
Really?
he's making all the money.
Right.
Well, yeah, because the middle America,
They make
the middle
way
class,
more money on Wall Street than they do in these
Absolutely.
annuity contracts.
So
But they
you're-
don't they don't advertise.
they don't
that.
advertise it.
They
You're
say
giving,
you're getting robbed. You're buying an annuity or life insurance. You're getting robbed. It's
No,
all
you're not.
commission. It's all that's total BS.
You're not. You're giving the middle class a tool to do great things, but you're not putting him in there as a gamble.
No, Paulina, you used a great word, a tool.
Right.
I use that in my practice all the time. I use the Home Depot analogy, but we use financial tools. Why wouldn't you use all of the financial tools
Right.
at your disposal? Why are you going to pigeonhole yourself into just using Wall Street tools?
Because the
'Cause
real
they tell you
wealthy,
to?
the real wealthy don't put everything. They don't do everything
Absolutely
in
not.
Wall Street,
Absolutely
but
not.
the middle class thinks that's the way to go.
Yes, exactly, because they're listening and believing this propaganda that comes out of Wall Street, billions of dollars or trillions of dollars in advertising to brainwash you into thinking that's the only way you can be successful.
Yeah.
That's totally not true.
You come out with student debt, then you go and buy a house, now you got a mortgage. So you got your two things you got to deal with. You might have some money to invest left over, but you might not.
Right.
And then you never get ahead. It's impossible. Plus the inflation.
Yeah. Well, right now, yeah. Plus
Yeah.
the inflation's killing people.
What do you think? What do you see changing as far as? I mean, we know that the markets are bad, but any policy changes that you see coming down the pike? Good or bad?
I think right now the Federal Reserve is going to be raising interest rates, and they've been doing that for the last couple of monthly meetings that they have. And they first started out with 50 basis point increases in interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen in the last couple of months mortgage interest has doubled where it was like 6 months ago. You can get a 30-year fixed mortgage like 2.5%. Now it's 5.5%.
Right.
A couple of months later. So what the Fed, the only mechanism the Fed has to combat 8.6% inflation is to raise interest rates. So they already went to, it was supposed to only be like 10, 50 basis point rate increases in the next 6 to 8 months. Well, they've already switched to 75 basis point increases. So the last one they had was 75 basis points. They're already talking about the July one, the end of this month. It's going to be another 75 basis points. So that is eventually going to start ratcheting down the inflationary number from 8.6. He says he wants to get, the chairman, Fed chairman
Powell
says he wants to get it down to 2, okay? It's going to be a lot of 75 basis point increases to get it down to 2 from where it is now. So I think once the Fed starts getting this inflation down, and that'll free up so the price of gas and the price of goods and services is going to go down. That'll allow people to start spending some money again. And our economy is
You think that's going to bring the gas down?
It's going to, well, it already has. If you look the last 2 weeks, gas is down about 20 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
Is it going back down to $2.50 a
No.
gallon? No, not anytime soon. But from over $5 to $4.60 in the last few weeks. No, there has to be some major policy changes to get that to happen. I'm not sure if that's happening, and I don't know, we talked about not being a political show,
Right.
but there have to be some major policy changes in our government to get gas back to where it was. I don't know if that's happening, but the Federal Reserve bringing inflation down is going to also bring energy down somewhat to help for individual people.
Right.
Do you like Powell?
I mean, I like him. I don't know the guy from personally,
yeah.
but I think he got stuck behind the 8 ball. He was reactive instead of being proactive. You know,
Same thing with Yellen too.
Yeah,
I mean, she saw. I mean, if you couldn't see inflation coming,
they knew it was coming.
Same thing going back to 2008. All the big institutions
6
knew what
months
was
ago,
going
they
to
were
happen.
telling us it was transitory. It's going to be
Yeah.
short term. Really?
Yeah, but because it doesn't really affect them.
And they talk about
Half
quantitative
the people
easing.
believe
doesn't
it. Half
affect.
the people believe it. Again, we don't want to get political, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
half the people believe it's only going to be transitory. But in reality, there's no way it was going to be transitory.
There's so much damage that's
You
already
can't
done.
move it that fast. It's not transitory.
It's crazy.
Right.
It's.
Um,
I want
a
to sink
little
my
change,
teeth in a
but-
little bit, but
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about 401ks.
What about them?
There's so many different 401ks out there, and how does the average person, or if you work for a company, they'll give you a choice of where you want to put your money and what kind of
Right.
401k, and the average person probably picks, I like number 3, let me try 3.
Well, the first thing you need to know is the history of the 401k. All right. Back when our parents were working, if you worked for a company in the 60s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, you worked for IBM or GE or GM, you worked there for 40 years and you retired. You not only did you get the gold watch when you retired, but you got what they call a pension plan. So
Right.
that company invested money in their employees, and the longer you worked there, the higher this payment was going to be. So you retired, you got a pension. Well, in the mid 80s, the government changed the rules on everybody and said, you know what?
We're taxing that, right?
Corporations were tired of funding the cost of retirement for people. So they said, we're not doing pensions anymore. They created the 401k, which put all of the onus on the employee now. Now the employee has to invest money in a retirement plan, has to pick their investment choices, okay? And they're responsible for their own retirement. There's no more pensions anymore from companies. Those days are over. So
Would the pensions and the 401ks tax the same at the end?
yeah, it's all taxed at
It's all-
ordinary income.
okay.
So what happened now is the 401k was created, and now the individual invests in the 401k, and the money grows to a certain pot when you get at retirement age, and then that pot, you start taking distributions out of it, and it's completely taxable to you, 100%, at whatever tax bracket you're in at retirement. So the sales pitch back then was save as much as you can. You get a tax deduction for your contribution, but you don't know what the tax rates are going to be when you retire. So think about that. Imagine going to playing any sports game or any game, and you don't know what the rules are, but they want you to play the game and you invest your money in that game.
Right.
How would I know to save money? How do I know if my $1 million pot at 65 is going to be good enough if I don't know what the tax rates are going to be when I'm 65 years old? That's the game everyone's playing, but no one talks about it.
Nobody talks
everybody
about
is
it.
out there going, maximize, fund as much as you can into the 401k, grow this pot to $1 million, $1.5 million. I advise the complete opposite of that. I want you to have the $1.5 million or whatever that number is invested at retirement, but I want it to be in tax-free buckets,
Right.
minimal taxes. I deal with a lot of retirees, and they're coming in my office now. They got this great 401k that they invested their whole life, and now you start talking to them about, okay, your distribution this year is $60,000 out of the retirement plan, plus your Social Security, and people still might have a small little pension now because they're not completely out of it. You add up all that income, you're in a higher tax bracket than when you were working. So now they're like, well, how do I get out of that? And the answer is you can't.
You can't.
The answer is you tell younger people today, don't save all the money in a 401k. I advise to all young people, save if the company provides a match. A lot do, but not all of them. If the company provides a match, you invest in the 401k up to the match. Then you take the rest of the money that you were going to put into that 401k and save it in your own Roth IRA. Roth IRA is completely tax-free. Now, you don't get the annual tax deduction on that money going into the Roth, but I now have all the years of growth tax-free and all the years of distributions tax-free.
Right.
So I want that $1.5 million pot at 65, but if I can have $500,000 in the 401k that's taxable, and I have the $1 million in a Roth IRA that's tax-free, that's a better strategy in my
I agree with you.
What is that tax? 35, 40% when you go to pull?
What we just talked about. I don't know what the tax is.
You don't know?
That's the
I missed
35 years from now, think about this.
That's crazy.
The rules
35
change.
years from now, we have $30 trillion in debt right now. We pay, I think, $2 trillion a year just in interest payments on the debt that we owe, right?
It's crazy.
And I think in 5 years, there's going to be more retired people in the United States than there are working people.
So they're going to have
The
to go after.
population is shifting. Now, those retired people need Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all these entitlement programs. The tax rates 35 years from now, if you talk to a 22-year-old, the tax rates then are going to be way higher than they are now. Or this country's going to collapse because they're not going to be able to pay for anything. So I don't know what the tax rate's going to be. That's what I said
crazy.
before. Why would
We
you
don't know.
think about starting and playing a game and you don't know what the rules are?
Yeah.
And they want you to save as much as you can in this pot, but you don't know what the costs are going to be later on. Like if you told me you start today and I know the federal tax rate's going to be 25% when you retire, that's written in stone, well, I
Yeah.
can plan for that. I don't know what the tax rate's going to be.
That's bad.
That's horrible.
So opening up a Roth IRA, are they all the same?
Listen, the rules are made by the IRS. So if you open up a Roth IRA, it could be at a bank, in a savings account.
Right.
It could be in a brokerage account at an investment company. It could be in an insurance product. They could be titled as Roth IRAs. You get the same tax benefits.
It's the same thing.
No matter where it sits.
Okay.
The rules are the same. It's just what you're going to invest your money in is going to be different. So,
Right.
Yeah. A Roth IRA is the same no matter where you put it. A 401k is technically the same no matter what company you're working for. Some might have more investment choices than others, but the rules of the 401k tax-wise are all the same. The IRS sets those rules. It doesn't matter what company you work for.
And
the
that
rules
changes.
are the same. What's the difference is how many choices do you have to invest the money? Is there going to be a match or not? A company's not forced to match your contribution.
Right,
Some
okay.
companies do, some don't. You're not forced to do that.
Okay. What's the best way to earn compound interest?
Just start investing in
And-
time. It's time. Compound interest is the benefit of compound interest is the time that you have for it to compound. So the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be later on. So if you start at 22 years old and going to save $100 a month, and 40 years later, that compounding of interest over 40 years is going to be huge. If you start at 27 years old and lose 5 years, you're going to have a big difference in how much money you're going to have at 65 years old. So compound interest, the biggest factor in it is time. So the earlier you start, the better off you are.
The better.
If you want that same amount of money later on, but start later, you got to invest more
Right.
to compensate for that time.
For the time lapse.
is the key to compound interest.
They should have taught this in school.
No.
Or
They
they should
didn't
still.
stuff in
school. They'll never.
They taught
They
nothing.
didn't
Why-
teach
why
you in
would-
college
why
either. I
would
didn't learn
they?
this in
Just to
college.
save, budget, all of it.
None of that.
It's crazy
It's all
that they
BS.
don't.
It's all.
There should be
BS.
a college course. We talked about it all the time. When my daughter graduated a while ago, he just graduated. There's got to be a course on life, a life course.
A life course,
This is
yeah.
this is how you balance.
And
This is how
who's
you write a
teaching that?
check. Right. Nobody.
I want to. No, I want to see what their life is like. The guy
yeah.
teaching. Yeah.
I have to tell you, some kids in their 20s that come in here, if they pick up food for their parents, they have a check. They don't know how to write it out.
They don't even know what a checkbook looks like.
No.
No.
So forget balance it.
Yeah.
Well, this whole generation with,
Communication skills lack
Venmo,
in this whole communication
and they don't
space.
even have a concept of money because they never see it.
They never see it.
They
They don't touch
Venmo
it.
it. It's
Right.
not real.
It's fake.
It's not tangible.
That's why you see a lot of doctors blow their money because it's just digits to them.
Athletes,
Same. It's just digits. Yeah.
No, it's crazy.
What do you think about crypto?
I don't invest any money in crypto. Just to put it out there,
Yeah.
I don't have any money in it. It's an unregulated.
Decentralized.
Security.
Yeah.
I'm not a big believer in it,
No.
and it was touted as something different than the markets. So when the markets are collapsing, you have your money in crypto, you're going to be fine. Really? I saw crypto.
That's what
Bitcoin was at
20.
69,000 high.
Yeah.
Is now breaking 19 or 20 or
20
whatever.
around there.
So wait, I thought it was not supposed to be affected by market conditions.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
So,
They pinned it to the market basically.
so now it's unregulated. So it's an unregulated security. It is tied to the markets. Why would I invest in it? So it's just like investing in anything else.
Well, all the wealthy people invested in it and then pulled.
Yeah, they made money.
They made the money. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
As a regular person, I wouldn't put any money into it.
I think in 5 years it's going to be a lot more.
All right, then I'll look at it 5 years from now. But
yeah.
right now, it's like the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
And as a fiduciary, I can't put my
No,
clients' money
definitely
in it.
not. Yeah.
I can't
No,
buy
because
it
you
myself.
can't answer it.
You
can't answer
it's
anything on it.
unregulated.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
unregulated. So you can't advise a client to invest their money in something that's unregulated by the SEC or by the regulatory bodies. So
Right.
I can't even offer it to clients.
Yeah. Interesting.
Thank God, because I wouldn't want to right now.
No, this is good. So,
It's
John,
crazy.
tell everybody about your radio, like what you're doing now.
Yeah, where can
Because
they find you? Yeah.
Right. So I got
Yeah.
a couple. I got two different ventures. Right. So we started a show called the.
Actually,
Papa
wait,
Report.
but we could cut this out. I just want to make
Okay.
sure we have enough time on this to get.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
Okay.
All right, just ask that question again. Where can you find John?
Okay, so John, tell everybody about your radio show and where they can find you and listen to more.
Right. So we actually started two different ventures. Right. We do a TV show on New Jersey 12 Network. It's on Saturdays and Sundays at 8 a.m. It's called the Papa Report. It's a half-hour show, all about current things that are going on in the financial world. It's me and a host in studio, talking about different things about finances for clients. And we also do a radio show on WNYM 970 AM, The Answer.
970 AM.
970
Okay.
AM on the dial. It's all radio lingo is totally different than regular lingo. They call it on the dial. And it's broadcast on Saturdays at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast on Sunday at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's an hour show about, again, current topics that are affecting in finance. People, market risk, taxes, inflation, estate issues, estate planning, things like that, life insurance, all kinds of things.
Is it question and answer? I mean, people can call in?
We do. They can't call in. It's a recorded show. They can't call in, but we do answer. They have a bank of questions from people that we answer. At least the last segment of the show was always 5 questions and answers from people that had called in to previous shows about specific financial questions.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they can't call in, but they can listen to it for an hour. They'll get a lot of insight. They started airing last week. I've been working on it for a couple months now, and they just started airing last week. So it's pretty cool. Pretty
No,
excited
that's
about
great.
it.
Good for you.
That's
Yeah,
great.
pretty
That's
excited
awesome.
about it.
And you can also reach John at 973-226-6000.
That's our office
right?
number.
That's
Susie's
your office
there.
number.
She's there now. She'll pick up the phone.
She's really sweet.
She's really sweet, Susie. I think, in fact, I said this on
My
my
mother loves
TV
her.
show. I think my clients like her better than me.
No, I don't know about that, John.
So
but
we
it's-
laugh about that. But yeah, and we're also on Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram, DPS Advisors. We're on Instagram. I just started that too.
Nice.
Facebook. 'Cause I wasn't on social media. I tried to stay away from social media, but they're telling me now with the radio show, the TV show, you need to have it. You need to be on it. So we created pages. So you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. My Facebook. I
TikTok
think
yet?
is-
Any TikToks?
No, I'm not a TikTok guy. I don't think I'll ever be a TikTok guy.
Don't say never.
I won't. I just only because I know who owns TikTok, and I'm not going that.
On
route.
principle.
On
Okay,
principle,
I got you.
I'm not
I
going
got
down
you.
that route.
I got
If
you.
you want to find me, you can find me.
Yes. Okay.
Awesome.
So, anything you want to touch on before we end the show that you think we didn't cover? I mean, I think we
I think we
covered a
kinda
lot.
covered a lot of topics. You
Yeah.
guys went to a lot of different areas that I think, listen, it's all about having a plan. We talk a lot about on my show and my TV show and radio show. It's about having a plan. It's whether, no matter how old you are or when you're start or not start investing, you got to have a plan. And what's the purpose of the plan? So it doesn't have to be the same thing. You can carve out different strategies. So I might want to save some money to buy a house now if I'm a younger person. So we invest that money differently than we would. This is going to be for 30 years down the road.
Right.
So it's designing a plan. And that's the key to any successful person in finance, in their finance, is having a plan, sticking to it, and knowing that this plan's got to work under the worst case scenarios. See, anybody can invest in the market in the last 14 years and be successful. It's when the stuff
Tides
happening like
change,
today, how does your plan stack up? It's got to work under the worst case scenario. So I would say to everybody listening out there, the key is have a plan, stick to it, and it'll work for you. Make sure you're working with a fiduciary. That's number one. The number one question you want to work with is a fiduciary, and they'll design a plan that's for your best interests over their own, and you'll be successful with that.
I think just people just learning that today
Have a
is
plan.
absolutely huge.
You can't just wing it. Everybody
No.
likes to wing it today.
I know.
You can't just wing it.
It's a wing it generation.
There's too much stuff going on.
Yeah.
To wing it in this side of your life. Wing it in everything else.
Right.
You know, where you're going for dinner a Friday night,
Wing
you
it.
can wing that. You can't wing investments.
This is
No,
an
it's
economic
true.
planet.
It's true.
Exactly.
So would you come back again?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this was
whenever
great,
you
right?
want me, I'll come back.
Yeah.
Awesome.
good.
That was
All
a
right.
great way to end it too, with that note. Awesome.
Thank you guys for
Yeah.
having me.
No, thanks,
you, John.
John.
I
Appreciate
Appreciate it.
Okay, we're out.